everybody.
Hi, guys. Well, from beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah.
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
The podcast.
I'm Frank Feldman.
And I'm Dan Beecher.
And coming up today, Dan, we're going to be talking about about morality, universal morality.
An Oxfordian study.
Yes, into sort of world religions, world cultures, and they've distilled morality down to a set of some basic rules that seem to be universal. And we're going to be talking about
that you and I hate.
At first glance, yeah. Yeah. No, it's...
They're like, here's how morality works, and we're like, bullshit.
Thanks, Oxford. No.
So
no, we're not doing that.
Our professional expertise is going up against Oxfordians.
But this is anthropologists and what they've found. I don't know if they're saying that this is what we should all follow.
Yes.
I don't think there's moral judgment being passed on this list of moral code. But anyway.
All right. We will discuss.
Okay, here we go, Dan.
Yeah.
Jehovah's Witnesses.
I've heard of them.
Yeah. And you've probably heard that, like, in recent times, the situation in Russia hasn't been so hot for Jehovah's Witnesses.
No, Russia is hostile to them.
Yes.
And has jailed some of them, haven't they?
Jailed. It's not a good situation for Jehovah's Witnesses.
They don't like them.
Well, so I say that only to set up this story.
Yeah.
Because the story actually that I want to talk about takes place in Finland.
That's not Russia?
It's not Russia, but it is where a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses went.
Oh.
Or have been going.
It is Russia adjacent.
Right. And who knows, maybe in large part because they had... Finland has had a law on the books that allows Jehovah's Witnesses to avoid... the mandatory service in the military.
Oh, okay.
Which is something that Jehovah's Witnesses are dead set against.
They will not do military service.
Will not. They'll serve jail time instead.
Right.
And sometimes they've been able to, I think, work out deals in some countries where they can do like an alternative service of some kind.
Sure.
But it sounds like whatever it is that Finland is offering as the alternative service is not something that the Jehovah's Witnesses really like. And so the Finland is revoking this law.
Oh.
They are no longer going to allow Jehovah's Witnesses to... Essentially, what they would do is they would postpone their entry into service for 3 years. And then at the end of 3 years, they would postpone it again. And they would postpone it again until they aged out of that requirement, right?
So they have mandatory service in Finland.
Yes, when you turn 18 and you're male, you go, you...
And it's only male.
The requirement is only male.
That's weird. Come on, Finns. We know you guys. You guys are awesome. You know that you can make the women do it.
Well, anyway, based on the fact that the rule was discriminatory.
Correct.
It is being struck down.
Okay.
There was a young man who was imprisoned in 2016 for refusing conscripted service. And he has used the fact that the J-dubs get to not do it just based on their religion as the basis of his case, and they found that he was right. It was discriminatory, but too bad. Yeah, you still have to serve. Everyone now has to serve in the military.
Yeah, there you go.
So,
that's how the word everyone works.
Yeah.
Although, frankly, at this point, I mean, I don't know. I live in a country with 300 million people, which is a very different animal than some of these smaller countries.
Yeah.
But to my mind, letting someone not serve in the military but do something else that also services society seems like a worthy thing to do.
Right.
Everybody has to serve their country for a period of time, but, do it militarily, do it this way, do it that way, give some options. Just seems smart.
Yeah. Well,
trust me, not everyone's cut out for military service.
Well, they have some sort of other thing that they do. Again, the article doesn't go into what the alternative civilian the alternative civilian service is that it mentions in this article.
Right.
But
toilet scrubbing or whatever.
Yeah, I have no idea, right? But like I believe it's most countries in this world have some kind of obligatory military service.
Huh.
For their
most
young
countries?
Men. I would think it's probably most. At least most sort of it's a tradition in the West. It's in Europe. It's at least very common. If it's not most, it's a very common thing.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, we live in a country with 350 million people, and a very poor segment of society that is willing to kind of just enlist, and there's other segments of society that see some opportunities that military service would provide,
sure.
Such as paying for college and that kind of stuff. And so we have mechanisms that get people to sort of join up in the military, right? That there's something also cultural that there's a lot of young men and young women who they want to go join the military, right?
Trade in their MAGA hat for a.
I don't think it's just that. And I obviously in the some of these countries with much smaller populations, they just don't see. They wouldn't see people signing up in the numbers that they need.
Yeah.
So they just make it obligatory.
Yeah.
Done. Easy.
Yeah. All right. Well, there you go. That'll be interesting to see how that plays out with the. At this rate, where will the Jehovah's Witnesses go? Where? Look out, Albania. Here they come.
Well, if they just came to this country, which I'm not advocating.
No, we exported them. This is our countries where they came from. We need to be apologizing for all of the stupid religions that we send out into the world.
Good Lord.
The Mormons.
Yeah, who else has created some sort of group like this recently?
Yeah.
God bless
our second Great Awakening was not that great, and boy, did it have some long-term consequences.
Our second grade awakening?
Yes, well, sometimes it feels that way. I'm going to take us to the fine state of Missouri here in these United States, where a bill has been proposed that targets, that is like literally just targets church-state separation laws. Or cases, legal cases, involving this separation of church and state.
Okay.
And what it does is say that if you want to file that kind of a lawsuit, a church-state separation lawsuit, you're required to use the real names of the people who are of the plaintiffs.
Oh God!
No initials, no Jane Does. You have to...
No judge's discretion in
No judge's discretion in the matter.
Right.
You have to file the real names on the thing. Now, interesting that they would say that this is just for church-state separation laws. They know exactly what they're doing.
Boy, that's just designed to intimidate.
It's entirely designed to intimidate people out of doing these kinds of lawsuits. That's the only reason that they're doing it, because they know full well that the people who file these lawsuits risk a lot.
Yeah.
I was watching some of the hearing on the bill, and Ryan Jane from the FUFR, from the Freedom from Religion Foundation, was testifying. And mentioned and talked about one case where a family's name got out, that they were the ones filing the lawsuit. They were threatened. Their lives were threatened. The woman was attacked had her head like slammed into a car.
Oh my God.
Their house was eventually firebombed and burned to the ground.
What?
There are real consequences here, people. This is legit stuff that happens to people, especially in a state like Missouri, where, you know, people don't take kindly to interlopers trying to make the Constitution happen.
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, honestly, this is very clearly designed to say to chill, to put a chilling factor on these kinds of lawsuits.
They show me the names. That's what they're doing. They're the show me state. Show me the names.
Oh my God, it's infuriating, and I don't know. We don't know if it's going to pass.
Right.
But it seems very clear that it seems very possible that it will pass.
Oh boy. No, that's horrendous.
It is. And you hit the nail on the head in that what they're doing is taking away a judge's discretion.
Yeah.
On this point.
Yeah.
So they don't even trust their judges to make this call.
No.
But it's so clear.
Why would you trust a judge? Why would you trust somebody who's in the room, who knows the facts, who has an education and experience? Like, why would you trust that person?
Yeah.
No, that's not who you trust. Legislators, they know best.
It's
developers and realtors and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
They know best.
Yep.
That's who's in the legislature.
It's a tricky
insurance salesman. Right.
Right. Yeah, it's chilling to me how they are willing to put their countrymen's lives at stake over a legal battle. You know what I mean? Over something that, first of all, they're not defending the Constitution. If you asked any of them, they would be like, how do you feel about the United States Constitution? They would have nothing but glowing terms. It is a document ordained by Jesus Christ himself.
Right.
And given by holy mandate to the wise founding fathers of our country.
Right.
And then when you say, well, okay, shouldn't we be able to figure out what it means, and and how isn't it important to litigate questions of that magnitude? Then they're like, well, not if it means that I got to take if somebody's trying to take the 10 Commandments out of my courthouse.
Right.
How dare they?
Right.
It's crazy.
That is, Dan.
They are hypocrites, is what I'm saying.
They are hypocrites. But this is not the first time Missouri has misbehaved on the topic of religion.
No. They are badly behaved people. Shame on them.
Shame on them. Dan.
Yes.
The Supreme Court this week refused to take up a case. And it has repercussions. It means something.
Yes.
That they did this, right? Whenever it's very interesting when the Supreme Court says we don't want to even hear it, it actually has repercussions.
Yes.
Right.
What it means legally in the immediate moment is that the lower court's ruling stands.
Correct.
Whatever that was.
Whatever that other decision was that somebody is contesting, they're just letting it stand.
Right.
But then anyway. So the ruling in question was from the New Jersey Supreme Court that said that Morris County, New Jersey, may not give taxpayer funds to help preserve religious buildings such as synagogues, temples, churches, and mosques. This is kind of a thing. They're states and counties and cities and whatnot will run preservation funds
of historic buildings
meant to preserve buildings of historic importance in their communities. And churches in some jurisdictions have been like, hey, we've got a historic building.
Right.
Why don't we get some of that sweet, sweet funds instead of having to raise it ourselves through the means that we already have with our parishioners,
Right.
Wouldn't it just be better just to get some government money, right? And obviously this causes a little bit of a problem in this church-state separation thing.
Correct.
Because we shouldn't be using government funds to aid religious organizations. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, what they're preserving most likely is going to be their house of worship.
Their meeting house, yeah.
Right? That they should just be maintaining and keeping up and blah, 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 all on their own. Now, it is a little dicey at times because sometimes I do think that there are religious edifices of real historic importance.
This is what this is where I was going to go.
Cultural importance.
I was
right?
going to say, like, I personally, I'm kind of like, I don't know that it is, to my mind, and I am no legal scholar, a separation of church and state issue. If you're going to be preserving culturally important edifices within your jurisdiction,
right?
I kind of feel like churches, like historic churches,
sure,
synagogues, mosques, etc., qualify. To my mind, they are a part of the cultural fabric of the area, and so to me.
I think, though, that figuring out which ones actually are and aren't is always going to be dicey.
Right.
And just because a building is old doesn't mean that it's historically important.
Right.
Right. Like, this is one of my main big beefs with, like, you know, some historic preservation.
Right.
Which many people may not agree with me on. They may see it as, well, yeah, you know, preserve it all. Right. and I'm just like, well, show me that it's important. Right. Mm-hmm. And so if you have a cute little village, right, and the main town square has a big, giant, you know, beautiful old church, right? I think that is the kind of thing that maybe you're sort of thinking of, right? Is truly historic and important.
Right.
It's pivotal. It's central to this community and their identity. You can't escape it, right? In essence.
And if you're preserving it as a historical building, if you're preserving it just because you know it's got some trouble and you know their meeting house is not going to be need some repairs,
I would say
then
if the only purpose for which it is being preserved is religious, then it doesn't deserve the government funding. If this is a building that has, you know, housed a cute little museum about the community or something, or
I say, you know,
they keep their doors open and everyone can go in.
That's what I was going to say.
And they truly have some sort of like public good that they are providing beyond religious. I can have a discussion about that. I don't know where my lines are, but I can discuss that. If it's just a house of worship that's being preserved,
let's close the rest of the week and then. Mm-hmm. And yeah,
because let me tell you,
it only serves their own parishioners,
right? Because let me tell you, that super important church in the middle of the town, it's got other ways of raising money outside of the local government giving them money.
True,
right? Like if it has that cultural importance, then the people of the community are going to donate directly. Right?
Yeah.
They ask for the money. They're going to, let's say it's some Baptist church. They're going to get Methodists giving money. They're going to get all sorts of people from the community. If it truly has cultural and historic significance in that community, other people are going to give to it. Right? Right here in Salt Lake City, the Catholics needed to spruce up the Magdalene Church. The Mormon Church gave them like $2 million to do that.
Did they really?
Yeah. Yeah, like 15, 20 years ago, right?
It's a lovely cathedral.
It is lovely, right? And it has this historic and cultural significance in our community. And the deep pockets over at the LDS Church recognize that.
If there's one thing that the Catholics need, it's help with deep pocketed churches. Is what I think.
Nonetheless, so this did, however, get one Brett Kavanaugh,
unfortunately
upset.
a member of our Supreme Court now.
He calls this denial of government preservation funds going to religious groups pure discrimination.
Yeah.
And he says this court will have to hear this kind of case in the future, which he probably is correct. They probably will have to.
Yep. And they'll decide wrong. If that court's been stacked well, they will be wrong.
Anyway, that's how I sort of see it, and it's interesting. But at least for the time being, this lower court their ruling stands. I think if nothing else, Dan, it takes the ambiguity out of something that we're going to have a really hard time as a society figuring out where that line really exists in a good way. We're not ready to have this conversation.
Maybe
culturally,
not. Maybe not.
Like societally,
we're a bunch of ding dongs right now.
We're
all right. I'm taking us to Pennsylvania, where a judge has made an interesting ruling, which is
in Pennsylvania.
Yes, Uniontown, PA.
Ooh.
Which every time I look at it, I guess I'm a theater guy. I keep seeing Urinetown, PA, but it's not. It's Uniontown.
Okay. Yeah.
Anyway. So there's been a ruling in the case of one Clyde E. Brothers Jr., a 70-year-old man who used to serve as youth pastor and volunteers for biblical like Bible camps for the kids and whatnot, and youth pastor.
Yeah.
You know what happens sometimes when you put a man in charge of kids?
Oh no.
Yeah.
No.
Yes. He's one of those. He
abused
and
molested.
Well, a lot of the stuff that I read was about him basically grooming and then grooming kids for it, and then showing like young boys pornography, and then like masturbating in front of them and encouraging them to masturbate and stuff. There may have been more. That's just the part. That's just what I read about.
Wow.
That's plenty.
Yeah.
That's more than enough.
Yeah.
He did it a lot with a lot of boys.
Wow.
When it finally came to light within the church, the church elders actually did a good thing, which was when he confessed to them, they marched him down to the police station.
Good.
And said, we'll be with you. We'll be there to support you, but you got to talk to the police about it.
Yeah.
And he sort of clammed up when he got to the police.
Right.
'Cause, but eventually he was convicted.
Okay.
Here's the thing. The fucking elders of the church have been allowing him to continue attending church at their church while this all has been sort of happening.
Okay.
So the judge, in their wisdom, said... ordered him to stop going to that church unless the elders of the church or the whoever's in charge at the church actually signs and delivers a waiver about that.
Oh.
So finally, the judge did the thing that these people should have been doing the whole time, which is just get this guy the fuck away from these people.
Yeah, no kidding.
But no, he had been allowed to attend. I just thought that was really interesting that he was that the judge actually had to rule that he was not to attend the church. He's also not allowed to have any sort of like trust or whatever. Anyway, he's not allowed to own guns. He's not allowed to have a position of public trust or profit. So I don't know. It's a very interesting ruling, but I thought, when the churches won't do anything, usually also our legal system kind of falls in line with the churches.
Yeah.
And kind of to the detriment of the victims.
He can't go to that church. Can he go to any churches?
I don't know.
Or is he just
Well,
barred
it says he's not to attend that church.
I would think then it must be just that church.
It must be.
And that's because there are victims, presumably, in that community. That's the whole basis.
And even if the victims have stopped attending the church, which most of them have,
right,
their families are still attending that church, and they have to look at this guy.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah. Why would the church not actually handle that themselves. It seems like he would be more of a disruptive presence.
But the whole ethos of Christianity is forgiveness, and they actually counseled people, the mothers of children who this man abused, to forgive, which happens all the time in these churches. Like, your counsel isn't, I'm so sorry this happened, we're going to do everything in our power to change it, we're going to change everything about how we vet people and blah, 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 and we're going to make sure that you don't have to look at this guy anymore. No, their counsel is, you have to forgive him, you have a heart full of hatred.
Wow.
That's how Christians do.
That's really, really fascinating.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dan.
Yes.
Here's a man some people may not be ready to forgive.
Okay.
Pope Pius XII.
Oh, Popey.
He was Pope during World War II.
That's right.
And
what a peach. What a peach of a fella.
Well, he sort of the public persona, or the public presentation of what he was up to, was that he was staying neutral during the war. That the Vatican was neutral. And, I mean, they had observance on both sides of the damn thing.
Right.
So that was the position that they took.
Right.
And...
Which, P.S., just so in case anybody's unclear on this, neutrality in the face of mass murder of Jews is evil.
May not be a good thing.
Is pure, unadulterated evil. You're not allowed to be neutral on that.
So, Jewish leaders have wondered for essentially since World War II whether or not Pope Pius XII did everything he could have done to save lives during, the Holocaust.
Right. A man in a position of significant influence in the region where the Holocaust is happening. Mm-hmm. What were you doing?
Right. And again, this is what Pope Francis has to say, because what they're doing now is they're opening up his archives.
Oh.
They're opening them up ahead of schedule.
Okay.
In order to allow...
This is ahead of schedule?
Yeah.
How many years since then?
Typically, they wait 70 years after the end of a pontificate, a pope's rule, right? After the pope dies, they wait 70 years to open up his records.
How many years has it been since this pope died?
It's been like 62, because apparently it's like 8 years ahead of schedule.
Oh, my God.
This is because Jewish survivors of the Holocaust have been asking for it to be open before they die.
Yeah, like they're getting old.
Yeah, and people would like there to be some resolution on this question about whether or not he, because his stance was, and the church's stance since then has been that he actually was working behind the scenes on humanitarian efforts to try to help the situation.
I've heard people that story.
Claimed this.
I've definitely heard that story.
And so the Pope Pope Francis is obviously now opening it up to scrutiny.
Yeah,
historians will now have access to his papers, and I mean, I'm sure an enormous archive. He was Pope for like almost 20 years or whatever.
Okay.
Obviously, they're going to be looking at a specific period of time.
Right.
But he was elected 6 months before the outbreak of World War II. And
I mean, I'll feel for him on that one. That kind of sucks. Welcome to popehood. Here's the hardest question a pope has had to answer in 10 centuries.
Right. And so there's just a lot of questions about this man and what kind of figure he really was.
Yeah.
I mean, you are on the position of condemning neutrality.
Yeah. 100%.
Neutrality, though, can be, let's face it, right? Like, what choice did the Vatican have when they were surrounded? And I'm not being an apologist here. I'm just sort of pointing out the reality. Here's the Vatican.
Right.
And they are surrounded by one of the Axis powers.
Right.
Right. That did have a concentration camp in their country.
The great fascists
are
literally surrounding him.
And I know nothing of this man. I know nothing of his papacy. Like, I honestly,
he was in a very difficult position for sure.
So he's in a position where there's obviously evil happening in the world,
right?
And there's powers that are fighting against it, and neutrality can sometimes be an act of self-preservation.
It can be,
right?
But I mean, there's neutrality about sort of the war as it was proceeding.
Well, remember, not everybody knew that, like especially like in the West, it was still fairly limited about like exactly what people knew. The Jews were being mistreated. They didn't know the extent of it,
right?
And
but
just
the
mistreatment, just the fact that they were being mistreated should have been enough,
right?
Right.
I'm saying he could have remained neutral on a lot of points,
right,
and still not remained neutral.
Nonetheless, what is important here is that he has a legacy that is very, very, very much in question.
Yes.
Right. And there is a tradition of these popes becoming saints.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yeah.
And much more recent popes have already been sainted. And the Catholic
John Paul
Church
just got it right.
Yeah. The Catholic Church has been very slow to canonize this man.
Right.
And in fact, the criticisms of his legacy have really ramped up since the Vatican put Pius XII on
the list,
the road to sainthood.
Okay,
right. Because again, this man cannot, he has to be denounced. A full-throated denunciation of this man must happen if the history is that he was aware,
right,
of the concentration camps and did nothing, or I mean, that's just at a bare minimum,
right.
There's
the possibility he was complicit.
It is very possible that he was complicit.
Yeah,
right. It is very possible that he knew about it and gave his blessing.
Yeah,
right. Like this is they're like. I don't want anything that I've said to sound like I'm equivocating or being an apologist or anything of the sort. I just think that that there are a lot of questions, and it is obviously a very complicated history, and these are the things that they're going to be wrestling with.
Right. Yeah. We'll see.
And so
that'll be interesting
very,
to
very,
watch.
Very, very interesting. My guess is that he did it. I've got my money on he knew too much.
He knew too much and did too little.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. We'll see how that plays out. Meanwhile, the Episcopal Church, the Anglican Communion, is going to be having their big Lambeth Conference coming up soon. And that's the biggest conference from the worldwide communion of Anglicans. The U.S. will be sending their bishops.
What is it called again?
Lambeth.
We've
talked about Lambeth before.
Interesting. Okay.
And it's it happens once a decade in Canterbury.
My.
There are a few guests who will not be in attendance, which is to say that 2 of the bishops in the U.S. will not be bringing their spouses.
Oh,
now,
no.
As you know, the Anglican Church is allowed to have they're allowed to be married.
No, Dan.
No?
Where is this going, Dan?
There are a couple of gay bishops.
No!
And they are not to bring their spouses.
They specifically told them not to?
Cordially not invited to Lambeth.
No.
It's controversial that there are gay bishops. There are plenty of parts of the Anglican Communion that distinctly do not allow it, and that think that it should not be allowed, and that think that they're not legitimate and question the legitimacy of these bishops. So yes, these 2.
Ew.
One of them's even a lady bishop.
No!
With a lady spouse.
And they're letting her show up?
They're not letting her show up. No gay spouses.
No, I said the...
Oh, they're letting the bishop come.
The bishop can go.
Right. But not her lover, her partner, her spouse.
Her wife?
Her wife.
I don't agree with any of this.
No. Well, there's a shock. Wait, on this program, we don't agree with how a religion is running themselves? Shocking.
I'm so upset, Dan.
As well you should be.
Actually...
Because this is one of the more liberal...
This is one of the more liberal ones. And it's one where it's like... Where you know, is one of these... What, Gene Robertson or whatever his name is? Robinson? Is he
no,
one of the guys?
He's not one of the guys.
Okay. He was like one of the first ones to like get married or whatever, right? And he was Anglican? Am I crazy about that?
No, you're right.
Okay. Well, nonetheless...
Yeah.
You know, but like when those kind of things back in the day happened, right? When there were like Anglican gay bishops and it was sort of first happening and they've got their partner and there's this and there's that. As a gay man, I go, well, good for them.
Right.
This is progress.
Yes.
This is a good thing, right? And now, however many, you know, it's a decade and plus a few years later, I kind of just go, you idiots.
Oh, fuck off.
Like what did you expect?
Yeah.
Right? Like you're good for you.
Yeah.
You get to be in your little religion. Well, do they still accept you?
Right.
Do they really? Does the God that you all collectively believe in accept you?
Right.
Nope.
They would rather completely alienate you and your partner and your life and who you are than risk pissing off the African contingency.
Yeah.
They would rather not look at an African bishop in the face and say, sorry, this annoys you a little.
Right.
Sorry, you're a bit uncomfortable.
Right.
By the presence of two people.
Right. Yeah. It's disgusting.
They'd rather...
If these people are allowed in their community, then their spouses are allowed.
Yeah. No, they're not.
Are they going?
Yeah. So
going in with
so what they're saying is that like several bishops wrote a letter of protest, but then they decided that they would be going because what they said was that they didn't want to be not represented.
Right.
At the conference. So they're going, but they're not taking their people. They should just go with their spouses and say, no, they're coming.
Yeah.
I don't care who you've invited.
Right.
I'm coming and my spouse is coming, and that's the end on it.
Well, they're Anglican. They're too polite for that.
Yes.
But this other part is too fucking rude.
Yeah.
It's an affront.
Yeah. Yeah. So there you go. So much for their progressive nature.
Ew, I hate the Anglicans.
Yeah, well, there you go. Hey, kids, if you want to chime in on this or any of the stories, you can do so by writing to us, podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail. The telephone number is 444...
Nope.
424.
Yep.
666-8442. There's a lot of fours in there, Dan.
Wow, I'm glad I caught you on that one. Go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist, and click the like button.
And while you're on Facebook, search for the TGIA Members Only Lounge and request to join. It is a closed group, but we will let you in. Hey, Dan.
Yes.
Rick Joyner has his sunglasses on again.
Uh-oh.
And he's standing outside. This is his favorite thing, Dan. I don't know.
Oh, he loves this action.
If you've dear listener, if you've never actually like watched a Rick Joyner video, like if you've only ever heard him on this show, you should really go check out a video.
Because he has different things. He's got his show.
Yeah.
But then when he wants to get a little bit more cash, he'll just do it like a Facebook Live poster or whatever out on his porch.
Yeah, and he'll have his sunglasses on, and you know he's out in sort of the cold, and he's talking to us, and he's giving his sort of words of great deep wisdom, this man.
Yeah.
Oh my God, Rick Joyner. Well, he is a little up in arms over Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC herself, and he says that he's a little flummoxed by her rise, right?
Yeah.
In politics and whatnot. So let's have a listen to what he has to say.
Oh yes, please.
I believe it goes back to some fundamental issues, but it talks about in Isaiah, when we start calling good evil and evil good and honoring the dishonorable and dishonoring the honorable, which we're doing now as a country, you know what the consequences for doing that is named? The judgment of God that would come upon the countries that would do that. Capricious children will be your leaders. Read it in Isaiah 5, chapter 5. Capricious children. I couldn't imagine anyone leading more capricious than this Ocasio-Cortez. And it's remarkable. You see the seniors standing behind her as she spews this stuff like she is already leading the seniors in her party. She's having more impact. They're listening to her. They're not rebuking her at all for the foolish, maddening things she's saying. I mean, there have been some minor rebukes come from some. But how shocking is this? It's happening right before our eyes, prophecy being fulfilled.
You know, there are people that are older than her not yelling at her.
I know. Not rebuking her. I mean, it's a minor rebuke.
So, I mean, okay, well,
we need, like, rebuke. Like, full, unequivocal rebuke.
You know, the hatred...
This woman. How dare she?
Of that particular woman. Here's the thing. I have purposefully not followed a lot of her story.
Oh?
Because she's new, and I figure, she's a firebrand.
Yeah.
And I want her to just sort of mellow out before I start, like, tuning in.
Right.
A little bit. But because everybody's yelling about her.
Right.
The left seems to be, like, screaming about how great she is. The right seems to be screaming about how stupid and idiotic and horrible she is. And I have only so much fuel in my political, battery right now.
Yeah.
So I just haven't done it. But it is funny to me that, like, what has become clear is that the right's rhetoric, if they had applied it to Paul Ryan, who started at exactly the same age as she's starting, it's clear that it's
exactly the same age.
I think it was about the same age.
No way. Late 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe he was even younger than she is. And it's just like, if we go back and apply what they're saying about her and her youth to him, they don't. It's clearly about her being a woman.
Absolutely.
It's 100%. They hate that a young woman is speaking up.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry. She's educated. It's not. I mean, first of all, he's calling her what did it say in Isaiah?
A petulant child, or
something about a child, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's not a child. She's an educated 29-year-old or 28-year-old, however old she is, woman.
Yeah.
Right? With responsibilities. And this is not a child. This is not a capricious child or whatever.
Yeah. How about capricious child being our leader? How about our president?
Yeah, he is a capricious child.
Yeah.
He acts like one.
He's literally childish all of the time.
Right. And so, like, it's just infuriating to me. And, like, this woman, she is, I mean, this goes without saying, but, like, she is poised to be quite literally the voice of her generation. Like, I'm in contact with some of my former students from when I used to teach at, in an after-school arts program.
Right.
Who are now in their 20s, right? And they look to her with just complete starstruck admiration.
Yep.
Like, she is it for them. And yeah. Anyway, so this is infuriating stuff for me. Like, I'm just like, no way, fuck you, Rick Joyner.
How funny. All right, well, we had some folks write into us. I will just launch in. Madison wrote to us, "Hi, Frank and Dan. I love the podcast, especially since I was raised in Salt Lake and a Mormon until I was 16. Per episode 378, by the way, we had a lot of people reacting to this whole to our conversation last week about whether or not we were raised in a cult.
Yeah.
So that's what a lot of these are going to be.
Isn't that interesting that resonated?
Yeah,
Dan.
There you go.
The idea that Mormonism is a cult.
Yeah, people seem to be on board with that thought. All right. Okay, back to Madison. "I don't disagree with your conclusion about Mormonism. I think it is culty, but not a Koreshi cult. I wanted to point out, as many people don't realize, Mormonism was founded during the Second Great Awakening, during which hundreds of Americans were looking for new ways to connect with God and create their own heavens on earth. Joseph Smith was very, very wrong, but he wasn't doing anything too abnormal for the time. Mormonism in the 1840s could definitely be considered a cult, as Joseph Smith was their mayor, unsuccessfully ran for president, and created their own language and banks, and married teenagers.
Yeah.
This isn't too far off from what the Icarians, Shakers, or members of the New Harmony were doing. Though maybe we should have just stopped and switched to silverware making like the Oneidans." So that was Madison. Thank you for that.
Yeah, that's great.
Sasha wrote in, hey guys, as someone who was born and raised and lived for 40 years of my life as a JW, that's a Jehovah's Witness, this subject is dear to me, and I have spent a lot of time researching this. I recommend checking out the work of Stephen Hassan, especially his book, Combating Cult Mind Control. He has created the BITE model checklist that helps define cult and high control groups. It stands for behavior control, information control, thought control, and emotional control.
Wow.
He says the size of a group doesn't negate whether it is a cult or not. JWs, JDubs, and LDS like to say they can't be a cult because of their huge numbers, but that is an irrelevant argument that they attempt to make.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump us now to Jay's email, because this delighted me. So, ladies and gentlemen, get your pencils out, because Jay has offered this. Hey, Frank and Dan, I've been listening and loving the pod for a while. I come bearing tidings of great joy, specifically a recipe. This comes because ever since y'all gave the current president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints the moniker Rusty Nelson, I knew I needed to contribute something. So I've got a simple drink recipe with both coffee and alcohol, because once you leave Mormonism, it's best to go whole hog. So he's given us the recipe for the Rusty Nelson.
The Rusty Nelson, all right.
So write this down, everybody. 1.5 ounces of bourbon or smooth blended whiskey.
Ooh.
1/2 ounce of Cointreau or other orange liqueur.
Okay.
1.5 ounces of coffee, preferably concentrated cold brew.
Oh, okay.
Dash of orange bitters, and just a twist of orange. Or in his case, he said he used his homemade candied kumquats. And then
Who is this guy?
He said mix with ice and
candied
shake.
kumquats?
I know.
Homemade?
He said a pinch of freshly ground nutmeg too.
Who is this guy?
This is a mixologist.
Yes.
This is a drink maker. A cocktailian.
Holy crap.
Anyway, it sounds pretty good to me. Yeah, he said mix with ice, strain it over ice in a rocks glass, and garnish.
This guy loves good food.
I think we need to do this. I'm going to make one of these.
You absolutely should.
A Rusty Nelson sounds delicious. I'm making one. So there you go. What do you got for us?
Well, we have some people to thank, Dan.
Oh, well, we must thank them then.
We have our Pantheon this week that we need to make sure that we give a big thanks to. These are all good folk who went to our Patreon campaign, which can be found by going to thankgodimatheist.com and clicking on the support tab.
Yes.
There's a couple options there. Some people go to PayPal. These folks went to Patreon.
Right.
And they have all signed up. These are all... The Pantheon got created, everyone, in case you don't realize or know, because we have a tie for first place. Right.
Right.
We used to call our top donor the Lord and Savior.
And we
right?
and
these
we
are
still
all
do.
our lords and saviors,
Yes.
but there's a pantheon of them.
Yes, there's a lot.
So what does one do when there's more than one? Well, we're
we love them all.
polytheistic. That's
Yes,
what we
exactly.
do. So here are their names in no particular order. Well, I think it's recent to old.
Okay.
So there is an order. Jash, Scott, Melissa, Dee, Hannah, Liz, and Judy. Thank you, one and all. We can't do this show without you or the support of the rest of our Patreons or patrons.
I do have to interject because I just realized that we do have a one new PayPal donor.
Oh, okay.
So thanks so much to Rachel's Styles for their contribution, their
Awesome.
monthly contribution.
Yeah, thank you so much.
But ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this and you're enjoying it and you're not currently one of our patrons, what are you doing with yourself? What does your life look like? Do you feel good about yourself? Get onto it. So go to thankgodimatheist.com if you feel like you want to show some appreciation, and sign up on one of these two platforms, and you will have our undying gratitude. So hail to thee, all you current donors, and we love you, and yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Dan?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we wanted to talk today about this study from this group of anthropologists at Oxford.
Yeah, you found this and brought it to my attention.
Yeah, and they've looked the world over and looked for common themes that most cultures, religions, societies, whatever, have sort of shared as their ideas of a code of morals,
as close to universal themes for morality as they could find.
And obviously, in Christianity, those of us who grew up Christian or have familiarity with Christianity, there's the Ten Commandments,
sure,
right? Or if you grew up Jewish, right?
Right.
But
the Buddhists have their eightfold path and their 4 pillars or whatever the thing is.
There are these things that are out there as far as like sort of can you distill out universal moral rules?
Sure.
So these are the 7 that they came up with that
seem to be pervasive throughout. Throughout all human cultures.
Yeah. So
okay.
Let's see what we think of them, and we'd love to know what our listeners think of them. So, help your family is number 1.
Okay.
Help your group.
Okay.
Return favors.
Interesting.
Be brave.
That one's really interesting to me. Be brave.
Be brave.
Just be brave.
Yeah. There's some interesting stuff to suss out there.
Yeah.
Defer to superiors.
Yikes. Okay, keep going. I really like that one.
Divide resources fairly.
Interesting.
And respect others' property.
Okay.
So this was a survey of 60 cultures from around the world, and it raises some interesting questions. I have sort of an initial kind of visceral reaction to some of these.
Yeah, me too. Obviously,
like help your family. I'm like, yeah, well, they better help me.
Right? Yeah. We don't choose our family. What if you're born into an asshole family?
Help your group. we're both kind of anti-groupthink types.
Yeah,
But I get what they're saying here, and I get why these are actually important. Return favors. What do you think of that, Dan?
That one's really interesting to me.
There's no thou shalt that sort of smacks of that, right?
But this sense of reciprocity, this sense of... but it's voluntary reciprocity. It's not if a person... I don't know. That's a really interesting one. Return favors. I'm actually okay with that.
I think return favors, if that's like a cornerstone of a moral code. It's not a bad moral code. I don't know. I mean, it makes sense. If somebody, I've never put a lot of thought into it. If somebody does me a favor, sure, I'll return the favor.
I mean, I guess that's I actually prefer the wording of what we call the golden rule,
which sounds similar.
It's along the similar lines, but rather than it. Because what this feels like, what the phrase return favors feels like, is a mandate that, like, if someone has done something kind for you, you have to seek out something kind to do to them. Well, you know what? I don't know that that's always necessary.
I don't know that you have to seek it out. Because, like, you can ask for a favor to be returned.
Yeah.
Like, there's calling in favors. There's that concept, right?
Yeah.
Like, you've done your good out in the world. Right, and if somebody comes and they ask you, and they're in need, and you know them to be a good person, you probably want to help them out. Even if you don't know them to be a good person,
I just prefer the ethos of do good. Period.
Right,
and like it doesn't matter if they've done you. It feels like to some extent it's like if someone's done you a favor, you owe them, rather than just you owe humanity your goodness.
Return favors. So you prefer pay it forward. If they'd substituted pay it forward to return favors.
I do not think that's what I'm saying. I don't think so. But I just
also
like
a very, very good movie.
Oh, a splendid film. I guess I just like as an ethos, I like the idea of like just do good for humanity, and like the expectation of a return feels cheap to me.
Yeah. Okay.
However, I don't mind it. I don't mind it certainly as much as I mind the idea of obey superiors.
Right.
And maybe
it says defer to superiors.
Defer to.
Well, Dan, I mean, here's the thing. Societies don't function if they don't work if there aren't hierarchies, right? And there are superiors in, like, I assume you pay your taxes.
I do.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
That's just deferring to a superior in essence,
well,
right?
I think that the American idea, and this, I don't know that we invented it, but this has sort of always been our ethos, our concept, is that the people who are in charge are not our superiors. They're not our bosses, current president and his personal views notwithstanding. They are our representatives. They represent, the boss is the people, and the people who are making these laws are doing so theoretically as representatives of the people.
Right.
So like it's not, so I agree that there should be a social structure and a social order, and that, we have laws and we need to obey our laws.
Right.
But that to me isn't deferring to a superior.
Well, it doesn't say blindly. Right. It doesn't say without ever questioning authority. Right. This isn't some sort of like. But I think defer is an interesting word.
Yeah.
Because it's not saying obey your superiors.
Yeah, but I mean, right. I will say that, like, when I'm in traffic, if a police officer is directing me to go in a direction, I will defer to that.
Absolutely.
Because I think that's how we keep social order. And isn't that what this is all about,
that's
really?
What this is, yeah. I mean, again, there are these hierarchies, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
Right. Whether it's at work or school or wherever you might find yourself in some sort of group organization, right? Maybe you volunteer somewhere. Well, there's somebody that you report to.
That you answer to, yeah.
Yeah, you know, and if that arrangement, the thing that's interesting here, especially like in sort of our context, is that if that arrangement stops working for you, right? Like you have a boss that you don't respect or like, or you just can't work for them, you go find a different job, or you get transferred to a different department
if you're lucky.
If you're lucky, right? But that option sort of exists out there in the context of like going in some sort of voluntary type thing. You just stop doing it. You find some other cause that you like, right? Like there's a lot of, you know, we have a lot of these freedoms, right? And this is not about blindly following, right? I don't have a problem with the idea of deferring to superiors, because the order in the workplace would fall apart, right?
Sure.
With somebody who has employees but who also answers to people, right? Like I understand that there has to be order, and people have to be willing to listen to me, and I have to be willing to listen to my boss, right?
Yeah, I agree. Order is important, and I think that's what a lot of this is, right? These guys are, they are evolutionary anthropologists, cognitive and evolutionary anthropologists, and when you look at sort of human evolutionary mandates, we have developed a pro-social, collective sort of ethos. I've used the word ethos a lot. I'm going to try and back off of that word.
If it's the word you need, Dan, don't avoid it.
But the mandate is that we have to be, that pro-sociality is necessary for our species because we're terrible as individuals.
Yeah.
We suck. But you get a few of us together and we do real well.
We do really amazing things.
We thrive.
Yeah. The next one on the list, divide resources fairly.
I think that's interesting.
And it's fairly, like they've chosen these words really, really carefully.
Yeah.
Right. It does not say divide resources equally,
or evenly, or whatever.
Yeah. It's about a fair distribution of the resources that are out there, and
that's one where our society is kind of failing currently.
We're in a little bit of we have a problem right now. We've got poor people who. It's turning into true abject poverty in this country.
Who are working,
homeless people
who are working 3 jobs, all of which make somebody well above them wealthy, beyond wealthy, crazy wealthy,
right? And our homelessness problem is expanding. Our urban centers are not providing enough housing for the lower end of the economic spectrum, whatever. And so we've got some real problems, and we best be fixing these things.
Yes.
Because I think this is when societies really start to crumble and fall apart, when they can't figure these things out.
Yeah. Although, in fairness to America, we have some really cool military planes, so they can do some amazing things.
And a lot of them.
And so many.
It's not just that we have got a couple sitting around.
Oh my God, we can blow anything up. So that's nice. At least we've got that.
Yeah. And respect others' property. I
think that one, that's probably the first, like, I would guess that if anthropologists go back as far as they can go, that's going to be the first rule that has ever come up.
I think help your family.
Okay.
Sort of, because we're talking about survive. You're not even talking about property.
Sure.
Yet. You're talking about survivorship, or just surviving.
Okay. Yeah. I'll give you that. But in terms of, like, you can't kill anybody, and also my stuff is my stuff and your stuff is your stuff, and you're not allowed to infringe on that.
Yeah.
I mean, you see like chimpanzees wrestling with that one. Hey, that was mine.
And then did we get into be brave?
Be brave. That's so weird,
isn't it? Though,
you and I were talking about this, and we were trying to think about it in terms of like our Mormon upbringing. And though I can't think of ways in like specific ways in which I was exhorted to be brave, the word valiant
comes up all the time as you're being raised in Mormonism. Yeah.
And I mean, so like they're, and you know, we sing "Onward, Christian Soldiers," marching as to war.
Yeah,
like bravery is invoked.
Yeah, but it never seemed like, in my mind, it was not a hallmark of Mormonism or Christianity. And now that I think about it, I'm like, wow, that is actually, it's like spread and woven through there, right?
Yeah.
Like it's really quite bizarre.
We are valiant in our, you know, in our pursuit of goodness and in our fighting of evil and stuff, which, you know, as it plays out in an average Mormon home just means, you know, super mean to their gay kids. But, you know, it's at least brave to disown your own child for Jesus.
Onward, Christians.
Look at how brave and valiant we're being. Anyway, an interesting group of concepts.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this, it's a better list than the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
Because
I agree.
Because, like you point out, it's essentially all pro-social sort of rules.
Right.
Successful societies have figured these things out.
And some of them coincide with some of the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
But, you know, the top 4 commandments are all about, like, I'm God, and you have to say I'm God, and shut up if you don't think I'm God, and everybody has to worship me and love me forever. Amen.
Right.
That's 1 through 4.
Essentially.
Anyway. Yeah. Hey, if you guys have anything, you know, if you'd like to suggest a good moral rule that you think could be universally applied, send it to us. podcast@thankgodimatheist.com.
Or call and leave us a voicemail message. The telephone number is 424-666-8442.
Indeed. Go to the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist. Click that like button.
And while on Facebook, search for the TGIA Members Only Lounge and request to join. It is a closed group, but we will let you in. Also, on Twitter and Reddit, look for our handle is TGI Atheist.
Yes. Speaking of social media, thanks so much to Mackenzie for all of her good work on the Facebook page, and thanks to Amy and Danny for their work as moderators in the Members Only Lounge.
And a big thanks goes out to the Red Rock Hot Club for the use of their music, and to Gordon Johnston for the use of his music.
And thank all of you for tuning in.
Thanks so much, guys. Bye.
Ciao.